I left myself muted. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Political Deep Dive After Hours show. Of course, I'm Dave Valente. Right now, it's going to be a light show tonight because most of my co-hosts are out this evening. So there's just a few things I wanted to touch on as far as the news of the week. RIP to DMX last week. Had a heart attack. Rumors of an overdose. I don't know what exactly happened, but he did finally pass away this week. The big news today is a reported act of nuclear terrorism in Iran at the Natanz nuclear plant. And it's reportedly the work of the Israeli cybersecurity team putting another bug in there. This has been a history of events that have happened in world politics, within Iran and their nuclear program, ever going back to the Stuxnet virus that the U.S. developed and got into the Iranian system and took down their nuclear system. They set it back for several years, so they continue to try and hit the defenses of the cyber defenses of the Iranian networks, and it appears that something has happened again. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. What kind of damage did it cause? It's an underground facility, but did it cause radiation leakage, anything like that? Are we concerned that radiation will start floating over Russia, China, and India? All three nuclear powers that probably won't take too kindly to Israel causing a nuclear meltdown on upstream from them. So I'll be interested to see what comes out of that. The other news is this week, we talked a little bit about it on the Deep Dive podcast, was we were talking about the Derek Chauvin trial. That is from what I'm gathering, it is going fairly well for the prosecution. Nick did point out that they did seem to get flat-footed a couple times. But on the average, I think that they are going well. I think they're going to get a conviction. Again, we haven't seen the defense side of the case. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get to that to the other side of the case, and what does the defense try and beat the murder charge with. I think that the prosecution's laid it out pretty well that it was asphyxia and not the fentanyl in his system that caused the death. I don't know that the defense side can refute that now. So we'll be interested to see where the defense takes this case and how long the defense goes, whether or not Chauvin himself will testify in this case. Generally, you don't want that. You don't want your maybe they do. I don't know, but that'll be interesting to see what is brought up with the defense case of the Chauvin trial. I heard that the Aubrey, the trial related to the death of Ahmaud Aubrey is going on in Georgia. That's another case that can be a flashpoint. It isn't police brutality, but it does speak to a greater systemic racism that these guys shot a guy jogging in a neighborhood, and part of it was the police bringing out his past and releasing him being confronted by police at various points. So and of course race in Georgia is a very big flashpoint. So that's another trial we'll be looking at and trying to see if we can get some clarity about what's going on in that trial. this week we learned that the Biden administration might be begin to build the wall again, fill in the gaps. This makes me angry, and I get where Nick's coming from that we should try and push them in a more positive direction. Um, but it does make me angry that we elected a guy who made those. I mean, made grandiose promises. One, not to incarcerate children on the border, and two, uh, plug up the gate. To stop building the border wall. And they did initially, and that was a good thing, and I applauded them for it when they did that. The problem is that I think they're bowing to pressure, a legal challenge to them stopping funding for the wall. They passed the budget before Biden got into office. That like the 11th hour of the Trump presidency, at least I'm sorry, not the Trump presidency, but the previous Congress was able to push out a budget, and that was paid for in that. So stopping funding for building the wall, yes, does go against Congress's ability to appropriate funds, but it's a waste of money. I will, this wall is, just it should be scrap. They should sell it for scrap at this point and try and make something off of it. Um, let's see, what else do we have going on in the news today? I haven't had a chance to do it. My wife came back this today. She was down in Georgia this last week, so it's been nice to get her back. So I haven't had a chance um, to look at the news. Oh yes, there is the volcano that's going on the island of Saint Vincent, which has, I think, taken over at least half of the island. It kind of reminds me of the volcano that happened, oh gosh, about 20, 25 years ago in Montserrat, and that pretty much obliterated the entire island. I think there's only like 25% of the island that is currently livable in Montserrat. So, hopefully the volcano on St. Vincent can be stemmed and go quiet once again. But that's the risk of living on a volcanic rock. So Brazil, they're building a Christ statue to be taller than Rio's. I guess not the separation of church and state there. I don't know if it's a private project or that's going to be done by the city. So the southern city of Encantado, Enchanted, uh, is building this grand statue of Christ, and it's going to be taller than one in Rio. So I think that's interesting. Don't use public funds to do it, though. Um, Britain is easing their lockdown, but we are seeing lockdowns increase, particularly across Canada. There's been a really bad strain hit of COVID up north, and the Vancouver Canucks hockey team has not been able to play for like 2 weeks now. It went so thoroughly through the team. Like there have been teams that have been hit by COVID, including my Buffalo Sabres. But it was like, I think the most was like 15 on a team. Um, this one, they assumed that everyone had been exposed to COVID. They did have 21 or 22 positive tests off of that team. And remember, a team, well, that's team and personnel. A full team is 23 players. So you're talking a significant majority of the team. They are supposed to reopen their facilities tomorrow and get back to playing, but that's just part of the story in Canada. They're starting to do some stricter lockdowns in the Calgary area. I think they're still doing lockdowns in Ontario. It's impacting the NHL season as the NHL right now are talking about extending the season another week to be able to fit in all 56 games for all teams. I don't know if that'll fly. I think at some point they might, because let's say 2 weeks from now another team gets hit massively. Are you going to take another week? What are you going to do? I think at some point they're going to have to make the decision that we're going to go on points percentage of teams to determine the playoff rankings in each division. Because most teams are right now around 40 games in the season. So you got 16 games left. Tomorrow is the trade deadline for the NHL. And I encourage everyone to join me on the Saturday Night Hockey Show is doing a special trade deadline edition. So join Travis Rednick and myself as we talk about the trades that go down tomorrow, the one that happened today for Nick Foligno. But it'll be a good time. So join us tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat chat. Well, actually, it's 8 p.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, on the Political Deep Dive Facebook page, Twitter and Twitch and YouTube. So we look forward to seeing you there. And another reminder, I know I brought this up on our Political Deep Dive podcast, but this week is my last week as chairman of the Libertarian Party of West Virginia. It's been a pleasure being the chair of the Libertarian Party of West Virginia. Libertarians in West Virginia have had tremendous growth over the last 2 years. We started out when I became chairman under 6,000 registered voters in the state. We're now well over 8,000. We're almost at 9,000 votes, registered voters, and that's after having a big purge the last 2 months by the Secretary of State's office. They've knocked off several thousand registered voters in the state. Our party has lost the fewest of any party regarding during that purge. So we still, in a great position to grow going forward. But it's a great. Oh, Dan is here. Hold on a second. Let me get Dan the link here. Hold on a second. This is a treat, everybody. Watch me do the TV magic as I get them. There we go. There we go. Dan, come on in. The water's fine. But anyway, so our 2021 LPWV annual meeting, it's at this Holiday Inn Express in Bridgeport, West Virginia. Our keynote address is by Terry and Matt Kibbe, and I don't know if you've ever heard these guys talk before, but they're fantastic. I got to meet them at the Libertarian Convention in Orlando last summer. Fantastic group. They work with a great friend of mine, Joel Davis, here in the state of West Virginia, and they're graciously have agreed to come out and give us a keynote address, talking about getting out and doing libertarianism in real life. Rather than behind the keyboard. We're also having great candidate training by Erica and Carl Kolenich. They're both have been candidates statewide in the state of West Virginia. Erica got us our ballot access as our fantastic gubernatorial candidate. She is a wonderful candidate. I hope she runs many, many, many more times. Carl is a great guy. He's my vice chair. He ran Erica's campaign, and he also ran for Attorney General in West Virginia in 2016. So both of them have statewide candidate experience, and I will be excited to hear the candidate training from them. We also have our candidate. We're electing a new board for the Libertarian Party of West Virginia. So this is a good chance for us to renew the party. I will not be running for re-election for chair. We'll get some new blood in there, and I'll be supporting the chair and looking at ways in which I can work as a Libertarian National Committee member in the state of West Virginia. And then also, how can I support directly in the state of West Virginia? So it's $5 at the door. So come on out if you're in the area. We'd love to have you. We'd love to pack the room and have a great time, a great Libertarian day. So anyway, with that, let's welcome, let me get this off here, Dan the Man Fishman.
What's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's see. What news have I gone through already? I talked about rapper DMX passing away, unfortunately. It was kind of in the cards once, he had the heart attack, and It's been a hard.
That leads to a fascinating thing. Do you have, or do you care about a DNR? Do not resuscitate document.
I do not, but I should.
We did this a while ago. I mean, COVID, right, put us through a lot of shit. But for me, as unfortunately a fat guy with bad lungs, my wife and I had a very difficult and unpleasant conversation where, I had to give her all my passwords to everything. Because, especially in the beginning, it looked like you might be taken in and just never get to see each other again.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And so we have a will already. But, going through those other things and talking about what we wanted I'm glad we did it. It sucked, right? It's as difficult a conversation as a couple can have. But anyway, so I would advise people out there, if you're in your 20s, you don't have to worry about it so much. But certainly, if you're married, if you have a partner, something like that, get a will done. It doesn't cost that much money. And then think about, a DNR document makes things a lot easier for people. I have to tell a joke now. So my best friend, Chad Harrison, who, if you haven't met him yet, you'll meet him. He was in New Orleans in 2018. If you came by my suite party, I actually brought Chad in to run the whole party. And it was amazing. We had surfing videos on the wall and tech music playing in the background. And
Nice.
Huge bar, stuff like that. It was awesome. Anyway, in high school, Chad and I, like I said, we were best friends. And so we made a pact that if either one of us were non-compos mentis, we would make sure to do each other, as we refer to it, the ultimate courtesy. And, we really talked at times about, what does that mean, and, probably, just terrible things. We can't, not in charge of your life anymore. That's probably where it is, some sign of real insanity. So then flash forward 30 years later, it's 2015, and I post, I'm at work coding, and I tend to jam music when I'm coding. I'm like, excuse me, and this is before like a big Mamma Mia thing, but I'm like, ABBA's Dancing Queen came on, and that is a really underrated song. And Chad replied, "This triggers the non-compos mentis clause. I'm coming for you."
Nice.
So, funny.
Have you ever seen the show Coupling, British show?
I have not. I know that Coupling was taken from Friends, which was actually taken from a predecessor British show. So it's really weird that happened.
It is, but Coupling is far superior to Friends.
Interesting.
Well, because they were allowed to go a little harder on the comedy than Friends, that touch different subjects. But there was the porn buddy, the idea of the porn buddy.
Right.
So, you're young virile male, and you step out in the street and get hit by a bus. You've got a buddy that will immediately go to your house and grab the porn.
Clear your browser cache.
Clear your browser cache. But back then was get all your magazines and one of the ladies was asking about this concept, and she's like, "So you just get all the porn and discard of it?" And it was like, "Who says anything about discarding it?"
That's very funny. I had a friend who she had a pact with her sister about sex toys.
Yeah.
Like, look, there's this closet in my closet up on the top shelf, and just like, Mom can't see that. She just won't get it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was. We've had that conversation about DNR. We just haven't put anything formal together.
Right.
And that's the next step is getting there and doing the will, doing the DNR and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, I'm getting up almost 50 now, and they need to make that clear. So,
Yeah,
um,
I have. I mean, it's interesting too because I think an issue that we shy away from sometimes. I don't know why we don't press it more, Libertarian Party, but ties right into self ownership is death with dignity. I
sure.
mean, it's a critical thing, and I just won't say just, but my mom passed in 2 years ago, almost exactly, March, early March or middle of March, and uh, you know, a year beforehand, she had sort of she knew a year beforehand she had a, a weird lump in her leg. It's a fatty sarcoma. And even though she got great medical treatment, stuff like that, she was 79 years old, and it spread, and at the end, when it was obvious that it was the end, it really sucked. Well, it didn't suck, but it was something that certainly I was really unprepared for what the reality of it was.
Hmm.
And my mom had been through something like that with her dad. Her mom had passed just over sleeping at night, and so she like really wanted to spare us all that stuff, and so she really wanted to do a death with dignity. And we talked about potentially moving her to Colorado. Um, let's see, how can I phrase all this and not get anybody in trouble legally? But So we'd actually had somebody set up a residence so that she could claim 6 months of residence, which is what Colorado requires. But when things turned south, it just wasn't. There wasn't. We weren't going to be able to fly,
Yeah.
and so instead, and I will say that the hospice was unbelievable once it started, and we got three just amazing weeks with my mom at her house. And this is a story I've told a few people, but it's weird. So the executive director position had opened up in November of 2018, and it was supposed to be filled January of 2019. But a member of the LNC pushed something through that essentially delayed the hiring for 3 months. And so, at first I don't know if I was disappointed or not. I didn't, I was sort of in the zone, it was me and somebody else with a finalist. But then, my mom got really sick. And so the fact that I didn't have a job meant I got to go live with my folks for her last 6 weeks, which was just unbelievable. And I'm not a person who uses the word blessing very often in my life, but that was a blessing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help thinking, and the last 48 hours were horrific. Even though my mom was medicated and we were administering her morphine and stuff like that, there's this thing that the body does at the end where it's sometimes called the death rattle, where your body relaxes so much that as you breathe, you're essentially incomprehensible. Your body that is not really possessed of a mind anymore and is in the process of actively dying. But every time you breathe, because you relax so much, your vocal cords are relaxed across your trachea, but you're essentially gone. But it sounds like the person is moaning with every breath.
Hmm.
And so, we had just 18 hours of that. That was just, what can we do? Mom, are you there? Can we help you? It was terrible.
Yeah.
And, if I could spare my wife that, fuck, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, how convenient would it be to say, okay, let's not do this last bit because the last bit isn't pretty. Let's, I own my body. Give me the right to say, okay. And so, I mean, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I don't want to get into too much detail about it, but there are things that people can do, um, exit bags, stuff like that. But if it's something that's important to you, I think you ought to be able to do it. If you want to control, what everybody else has to deal with, and I don't know, that's it. And then it's just insane to me that Massachusetts, of all places, right, super progressive state, but no death with dignity. And if I'd stuck around, that would have been like my major thing to fight for. But I didn't. I came down to D.C. But maybe someday it'll be a national issue again. It certainly should be.
It should be, because you can't claim that we have ownership of our bodies if we can't make that final decision. I mean, I guess anybody can make that final decision, but doing it in a way that doesn't, require, a family member finding you, or a very big mess, those type of things. I mean, it's just, the way that they do it in Oregon, the way they do it in Colorado, it's the way to do it. I mean, that's, it's peaceful, it's medicated. You don't feel a thing, and you just go to the other side.
Yeah.
And that should be your choice. It should not be the government's choice to make that says you can't leave this earth without our permission.
Right. Because, I mean, how can you possibly say that you own yourself if you can't get into a place where you control your last moments? I mean, who owns you at that point in time? And it's ridiculous that some people, are forced to do hunger strikes, right? To go on a fast to hasten their death when there are comfortable ways out there. I mean, one of the things that we talked about, and it's funny actually because I got my dad on signal for this, was they do give you a whole bottle, at least in Massachusetts, a giant amount of morphine. Easily more than enough to kill a person.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, what do you want to do? Is that why they gave it to us? Because it's different if the person, if it's a choice that you make, but once you start giving the person the morphine, they're not 100% there anymore either.
Sure.
You want to alleviate the pain, and morphine's unbelievable for alleviating the pain. And I'm not an expert in this either, by no means. But it's funny because my wife had to go through this with her dad, and it totally sucked. And she was actually in school at the time too, and they didn't even tell her that her dad was sick until he had about 2 weeks left. And so she went down there, and at that point in time, the pain was so bad that he was just zapping the morphine all the time, and so he was essentially incoherent, and they couldn't have a conversation. And I'm very thankful that later we've gotten much better about understanding managing pain and stuff like that. Plus, my mom had CBD. Marijuana has legal recreational, which we couldn't get her to do any THC stuff, but she's willing to do CBD for inflammation, and that helps with pain a little bit too. But it was, I don't know, it was just brutal.
Yeah.
One of those things that I think everybody, should be spared. And, you think about.
Absolutely. There's no gain in extending someone's life by 48 awful, painful hours. There's nothing to gain through that.
Right. I agree with that 100%. And the thing is that it's so, I don't know. I've said enough on this.
Sure. And I get you, because you said it's very difficult to watch. It's very difficult to watch your parent pass away. But when it's the parent of your significant other, it's doubly awful because I grown very close to my in-laws, both of them. One died very suddenly, and then 4 months later, the spouse that he had been caring for kind of withered away. And those last 48 hours were awful. She was in pain, and she was a person who was absolutely allergic to all pain medications. She couldn't do anything more than like a time.
Oh,
Yeah. So, it was either she had to be just basically put under or, suffer in pain. But it's doubly hard because you're, not only are you losing a person that you care about, but you're also watching your spouse lose their world.
right,
And
right.
it was just awful.
Well, and so that was the really interesting thing about it too, is that, I talked about it being a blessing, but being able to be there for my dad.
Hmm.
And, I don't think our family is unique in this respect, but, fathers and sons of our generation, we have a tough relationship. Uh, my dad gave me the belt once in first grade when I came home because I had been stealing candy from the local drugstore.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, I totally deserved it. But I remember him saying to me, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And, just thinking, how is that possibly even true? And then, there's that great Mark Twain quote. When I was 14 years old, my dad was a complete idiot. When I was 21, I was amazed how much he'd learned in 7 years. And, my relationship with my dad has definitely been like that. And, it's funny because he was always a planner. And so, at the end, he actually, when he and my mom met, uh, he was in the army at the time, and he smoked cigarettes up until the day the Surgeon General's warning came out, and then he stopped smoking cigarettes because it's bad for you. And then I remember very well it was like, I want to say it's 83. So, my dad's 50 years old, and he's like, I want to live a long life. And so he started running. And so, he ran from 50 till 75, essentially. And then at one point in time, he was running and he felt something weird in his heart while he was running. And so they took him in and he had a 80% blockage in one valve that they were able to clear out. I mean, and, we live in an age of medical miracles.
Yeah.
It's outpatient surgery, right? They make a little hole in your groin and they go up there and a little robot goes, clears out all the blockage. You're good to go. And he's like, well, how soon do I get till I can go running again? And they're like, at your age, you're more risk from a fall than you are from anything else. So do something else. Now he's an aggressive walker. But it's funny because he has like I said, my dad's a planner. So he wears a Walmart yellow vest. You know what I mean? Like the fluorescent thing. He walks from our house down to this beach. And he does it all the time, every single day, no matter what. I mean, unless it's like miserable out. People think he's a groundskeeper or something because he picks up trash while he's walking the road, and they see him there every day, and they're like, "Who else would be doing that?" Yeah. And so, like, sometimes people will stop and tell him, they're like, "Yo, you're doing a great job." He's like, "Thanks."
That's awesome.
Anyway.
All right, let's find a happier subject.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about Iran's nuclear terrorism. So today, the Iranian government released that, let's see, their nuclear facility at Natanz was hit by nuclear sabotage. Israelis are saying it was their cyber terrorism, one of theirs, and no word on what the damages are yet. But back in the late 2000s, the Stuxnet virus hit the Iran nuclear facility. Now, it did have blowback. This one actually came and hit the United States as well and took down like some hospitals, their servers and stuff like that. So Iran is now on a comment. It's Elizabeth. Hey, Elizabeth, how you doing?
Hey, Elizabeth. I have a couple things to say about this. So first of all, the Stuxnet thing, it is what it is. But So, for a long time, I was a software guy.
Yeah.
And nerds aren't great at keeping secrets. I don't know if this is true or not. Believe whatever you want. However, this part is documented as true.
Oh.
I want to say 10, 12 years ago, Iran claimed to have shot down an American drone. And, they showed all the pieces of it, and the Americans like, no, they didn't shoot it down. It just got lost from Afghanistan,
Right.
lost from whatever, blah, 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 blah. The story behind the scenes is that actually the malware was on the hard drive on the drone.
Shit.
So it's quite literally a Trojan horse.
Oh my God.
Right. And that was how this stuff got in there.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So
the story that I had heard was that some Iranian nuclear scientist was working on his laptop that was, he would take his work laptop home with him and connect to the internet, and then they found out and they loaded his machine with it. But that's actually a much better story.
I'm still here. I'm just blowing my nose, not on.
Oh, it's all good. But yeah, so again, it's this whole give and take, and the with Iran. I mean, honestly, we need to send them James Ray, and talk about building a thorium reactor.
Well, but I mean, look.
Yeah, and we know why they're trying to build a reactor. Yes.
Exactly. Iran has so much gasoline that they don't need a reactor.
No.
Ron Paul had this right. They want to build it because they're aware of the fact that we treat countries that have nuclear reactors differently.
Yes.
So that's part of the problem. But the other thing about it is that there is, a real independence movement. Great movie I recommend for everybody. You can find it. You know what? I can share screen so I can find it on the side. Called Persepolis.
Persepolis?
Persepolis, yes.
Yes.
And it won the Oscar, I guess, for Best Foreign Film such and such a year. And we could probably find the trailer online. I don't know if playing the trailer would get us banned again.
Yeah. So actually, all right. So we played that video. We played the music video last time.
Yeah.
That had no issue. Us playing that video, but doing that little bit from the Oscars is what got us banned for a moment.
Interesting. Well, so people should go watch Persepolis, Persepolis, and watch the trailer. But Iran was this incredibly modern country with a lot of good stuff going on in it. But the Shah was terrible, and we supported him. And so, when the revolutionaries came to power, they were hardcore because the Shah had repressed everything less than hardcore. If we'd supported actual democracy in Iran and not kept the Shah in power, the rebels who came to power wouldn't have been, the Iranian National Guard or whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
And so, Ron Paul's right. There's a lot of blowback there that we're dealing with. But
so Persepolis, the story of Persepolis, was this the one that was done by?
It's French. It's animated.
Okay. So Marjan Satrapi is the author of that book. It is a fantastic book. I love that book.
Yeah, and so she made a movie as well.
All animated, but it's about the Iranian Revolution and her family in that country during the Iranian Revolution. Awesome book. But Persepolis is so the big thing. This is kind of at the start of the beginning of the fall of the Shah. In 1971, they determined it was the 1500th anniversary of the Persian Empire. So the Shah throws one of the most extravagant parties in history. They build this tent city outside of the ruins of Persepolis, the ancient capital of the Persian Empire. They fly in, and this is like the biggest gathering of heads of state in the history I mean, you had I know Agnew went for the United States, but you had kings and queens. It was like one of the last meetings of the long-serving monarchs. So the Greek monarch and the Haile Selassie was there. The
Yeah,
any royal in the Middle East. I mean, it was so extravagant that they estimate in today's dollars between 100 million and 300 million
wow.
spent on this party, and very few Iranians were allowed to participate, even within the Shah's group of people. It was basically just the Shah and the director of state security. Um, Average Iranians weren't allowed within 50 miles of this place. Um, but just the opulence that was spent on that, while there was just horrid squalor in some cities. That's what started setting off people turning towards the church and the Ayatollah. And the Ayatollah reacting to this, he started sending taped messages into Iran to get broadcast during the Friday sermons, and that's what inflamed the tensions. Of course, at this time, the Shah himself was by 1974 he had lung cancer, which was what eventually killed him. And he had such hubris, and he was so afraid of leaving the country that he stayed in Iran and didn't get treatment. He actually flew in a couple French doctors, and by the time the French doctors got to him, they're like, the French embassy had to alert the United States that this dude's dying. Like, he's not long for the world. And that's what sent the U.S. into scramble mode with him. Finally, it became too, by 1980, it just became too, or 79, it became too tenuous to keep him in Iran. But it's a fascinating story.
Right. And so the interesting thing is, our relationship with Iran now is kind of, I don't know how, I don't know if it's reparable, irreparable, whatever. I do think that there is a legitimate concern for safety with what Iran is willing to do.
Yes.
But the answer to that is not, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's not to impoverish Iran. It should be the opposite. We should enrich Iran.
Mm-hmm.
There is, it's not 100% true, but it's mostly true that two wealthy democracies have never gone to war.
Yeah.
Now,
democratic peace theory. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Iran's not really a democracy, but Serbia was this incredibly belligerent nation during the Balkan conflict.
Yep.
And then the U.S. and we talked about military action and all, complained about all that stuff. But one of the things that they did was they took out every bridge in Sarajevo and said, "Look, you guys want to have a modern country? See what it's like when you can't get across the river, because we can bomb those fuckers all day. There's nothing you can do to stop us." And then they dropped, this bomb that essentially is filled with aluminum foil, and it drops around an electrical power plant, and it causes the entire plant to short itself out.
Oh shit!
So now, no bridges, no electricity. You guys really want to wage a war? Because war is so much worse than this. And for the Serbians, who were wealthy and comfortable, they're like, yeah, no, sorry. We want to go back to the way things were. We like the electricity. We like the refrigerators. We like being able to get across the river. Iran, right now, because we're putting these crippling sanctions on them, right? They're not enjoying the wealth, right? Saudi Arabia isn't going to go to war with us because they're living this incredibly comfortable life, right? We've made them incredibly wealthy. Now, has there been all sorts of terrible consequences from that? Yes. But let's just make Iran too wealthy to want to go to war. And, there are times that hasn't worked very well. We're going to set off every libertarian in the world if I talk about Palestine. So I don't want to talk about the validity of the conflict, but this part is indisputable. Yasser Arafat, when he died, 80% of the money, over 80% of the money that was supposed to go to Palestinian people, he had in his personal bank account.
Yeah.
Mubarak in Egypt was another guy that we were giving millions and millions of dollars to, and that money
Billions, actually billions annually.
Yeah, and that
And
money never really made it to the people. It went to him to keep the peace. When in reality, the best thing that we could be doing is to empower the people to keep the peace. So, I mean, in terms of philosophy for foreign policy, I do agree with Ron Paul's statement that foreign aid is taking money from the middle class in the United States and giving it to wealthy people overseas.
Yeah.
And so it's generally a bad thing, but promoting the ideas of self-ownership, finding a way to use, our commercial power within the United States, our consumerism, and I'm a person who I love consumerism, finding a way to use our consumerism for good, saying, you know what, there are these people that are making stuff in Iran that you could buy right now and make them wealthy. Whatever the fad is, buy something from Iran and ship them some money. Money is power. If you were able to sell to make
Persian rugs. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Just find a way to put more capitalism and more money into Iran. And let's remember too that Iran has tremendous natural resources in oil. However, who owns that right now? It's run by the Iranian government. And so the oil that they sell enriches the government, doesn't really help the people. The government has a vested interest in staying in power. And so they do what they need to do to stay in power, including having elections where, like 97% of the people vote for the existing party.
Yeah. Well, and, they did have a chance. I mean, I'm a firm believer that you want get the sanctions off Iran. Again, those are punishments for the people of Iran, and they don't have the ability to, I get the point that you want to try and foment discontent so that the government's overthrown. They don't have the means and the ability to do that in Iran.
Right.
So all you're doing is just damaging the people, and then you're creating resentment towards the United States. Lift the sanctions.
Right.
And then have an open door policy towards the Iranian government saying, you want to come back, you want to reestablish diplomatic relations with the United States. Here are the conditions that you need to do. And then we'll be happy to, if you're really interested in doing nuclear power, let's talk about thorium. Let's talk about,
Right. Yeah. But, they're not really interested in doing that. But one of the interesting thoughts that I had read was that, if they really want nuclear power, the right thing would be to, and I'm saying I'm not in favor of military engagement, but let's accept the fact that there are American generals planning war strategies.
Yes.
So one of the strategies is destroy the Iranian oil fields. Just destroy them. Make them useless to anybody, Americans, anybody. And then let the Iranians see what they want to do without the natural resource that they had beforehand. I mean, maybe that's the great equalizer. Now that the extremist government doesn't have the money anymore to pay. Excuse me. Double Gesundheit myself to pay for the the reign of terror that they're running. Maybe things change, and then we could probably sell them on a thorium reactor.
Yeah.
Because hey, you guys, we want now that you don't have oil anymore, because when you have that much energy, it changes the way you do things. Like the Saudis, for example, have these gasoline-powered desalinators running, all the time. So even though they're in the middle of the desert, they have no shortage of water because they have no shortage of energy, and they're just converting ocean water into fresh water left and right. Iran could do that. They've got that much stuff right now, but they don't want to. So maybe the best answer is I don't know. I don't know what the best answer is. The best answer is to promote as much freedom as we possibly can.
Exactly. And that's, again, you're not, with the sanctions that we've got going on, you're not going to promote the idea of freedom and democracy in Iran. You just can't do it when people are starving and can't get medicine.
Yeah.
And those sanctions don't hurt the Iranian regime that you want to hurt at all. They got theirs.
Yep. What do you think about the idea of something like what the United States did during the Russian occupation of Afghanistan? Now, let's say it's not the government. Let's say that we've got a group of concerned citizens, but they want to start shipping handguns to Iran, distributing them to the people under the table.
I mean, it didn't really work out well for us in Afghanistan. It hasn't worked out well for us. And really, when you look at Somalia, it was kind of a back and forth thing. First, they were patrons of the Soviets, and they became patrons of us. And just the sheer amount of weapons that are in the country right now, just.
Well, I think that the short range goal in Afghanistan, you would have to say that for what people wanted out of American foreign policy, which was, essentially the Russians to have their own Vietnam, it was an overwhelming success. They were shooting down Russian helicopters with American Stingers, and the Russians are gone.
But what do you want coming out of that? Do you want to just? Afghanistan being an ungovernable, and we got to have that discussion about being ungovernable. But
that is the fascinating thing about it, is that there is this interesting question. I used to always say that in many ways Iraq was the last stand of tyranny, and let me make all the Lincoln haters happy out there by saying thus always to tyrants.
Yeah.
But the question is, though, that it used to be that you couldn't keep the people down because the people were more, and they always found a way to rise up. And American Revolution is the best example of that. The question is, though, now has technology advanced so much that a small group of well-armed people can suppress a very large population?
Yep.
And if so, then what does that mean for us? Are we obliged to sit there and watch other slave states exist? I don't know. I don't have a great answer to it.
I don't either. And I worry because, we've done it. We did it with Afghanistan. We the Nicaragua. We've done it all over the world.
Yeah.
To varying degrees of failure. And, I don't think that's, if it's a private effort, then perhaps. But again, you have to understand what is going to take that place. Like in Afghanistan, we replaced the Soviets with a civil war that ended up giving us the Taliban. Not a good thing. In Nicaragua, we had a bloody civil war, and then they finally got Daniel Ortega back, and they brought him back in, like democratically. They brought him back in, like, okay,
right.
It's interesting. The foreign policy planks. I think we by and large get it right by saying, don't get entangling alliances. Let people trade with whoever they want to. Don't get involved in that, because I do think that that's the better way.
Whoops, sorry.
Getting people trading and talking to one another and exchanging ideas and goods and services is what is going to build a better, lasting relationship, a peaceful relationship than anything a government can do through even some diplomacy.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's interesting because, I mean, I guess the example I think is the best right now is China, right? I mean, China is 1 billion people,
Yep.
suppressed and ruled by a very small elite who, are, at least on face value, making their country very productive. Right? Nobody can deny the Chinese economic engine rising up at this point.
Sure.
Although, there is an interesting analysis of this. If you look at, where's my shoe? I have to do my Khrushchev, right? We will bury you.
Yes.
For those of you who aren't old enough to remember, you can just look up Nikita Khrushchev, Shu UN. But, at that point in time, the Russian miracle, people thought, they looked at their economic growth and they're like, oh my God, they're going to bury everybody. But if you look at the basic economic formula of what GDP is, employment percentage is a part of that. And what happened was the Russians were ramping up towards full employment from not having been there. And that's what made it. But then when they got to that part, they sort of stagnated again. And I kind of wonder if the Chinese are sort of going to hit that as well. They already have, the Russians tried this too, that, they found, they used to have, obviously communism is what it is. They used to allow private plots for senior citizens to have their own sort of 1 acre to farm themselves, and they could keep the proceeds from that 1 little acre. And what they found was that, even though it ended up being like 1% of their farming space, they're producing like 40% of the crops. And so it was just clear that when people were working for themselves, they were incredibly productive. And the Chinese have the same sort of thing going, where they have these little capitalism islands where, it makes things work. And that's why, they have sort of partnerships with American companies and stuff like that. Is that going to be enough? I mean,
you can make that case with the United States, because one of the things that brought down the Soviet Union was that they were producing a lot of stuff, but like 75% of their GDP was based on military and building their military and all, whether it was nuclear weapons or just tanks. And we're not there, but we're spending an incredible amount on military every year. Is that sustainable? And I don't think it's sustainable.
For China or for us?
For us.
The thing is that our wealth is unbelievable. People don't really understand how much wealth there is in the United States. But, I mean, you think about it, right? Even if you're poor in the United States, your kids have an Xbox and you have a flat screen TV.
Yeah.
It is, and, there used to be, it's not 100% true now, but it used to be for the longest time that the United States was the only country in the world with an aircraft carrier. And we had 8 of them.
Yes.
And nobody else had an aircraft carrier. I believe the Chinese have built an aircraft carrier.
They finally have one, yes.
Yeah, but, and the British had their Harrier, the vertical takeoff and landing, but that's not a full-fledged aircraft carrier. Other things about, you look at just the things that we throw away. I talk about this all the time. Cities around the country and states are banning plastic bags at grocery stores. How rich are we that this amazing piece of technology, because a plastic bag is fucking unbelievable. You could hold a gallon of water in it. It's this thin, right? If I asked you to make something that is as good as a plastic bag, you could not do it, right? You could not make anything anywhere near as good as a plastic bag that you get at a grocery store. And yet we're banning them in the United States because that's how rich we are. Morality is always a question of what can you actually afford? And so, you look at our morality, the things that we're upset about that people are doing. And Chris Rock has a great routine about this. He's like, too much food in America. Too much food in America. And only in the United States, people are going to say, "Don't eat no red meat." Man, don't eat no red meat. I mean, I grew up, I was poor. I was like, don't eat no green meat. If you're one of the lucky people who get a red steak in front of you, bite the shit out of it. I apologize to everybody for my Chris Rock imitation. But, I mean, how wealthy are we that we're like, yeah, don't eat red meat, no carbs,
Yeah.
right? All these crazy diet things that are going on. When and Chris Rock again, the same thing. He's like, only in the United States is like being fat bad. You go to Africa, you see somebody fat, and you're like, damn, how'd you do that? Oh, I hell with you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great book out there called Factfulness. And it's a Swedish sociologist that wrote this book talking about how we as humans are conditioned, especially in Western democracies, have been conditioned to believe the worst about our condition. Like, he asked like a basic question of, how many people, as a percentage of the world, how many people are living in poverty today? And to a person, people will pick the highest number.
Right.
And in reality, it was the lowest number. Like we're just conditioned to think that things are so much worse than they are. And he goes into talking about the remarkable climb of Sweden from being a subsistence economy to being an economic powerhouse in Europe. So I don't know. I think people are conditioned to think that we are just we're struggling. There's bad things that are going on. It's capitalism's fault or whatever. And
yeah, and there's this sort of economic reality that the wealthy are always going to accumulate things. That's why they're called the wealthy.
Yeah.
That is their skill set. And when we create more wealth in the world, the wealthy always get a larger share of that because that's what they do. That's what, but by definition, whoever is the person that gets the larger share of that is now the wealthy.
Yep.
So when we have revolutions, I talked about this the first time. The first big worldwide revolution economically is the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
When what used to take a factory full of textile workers to do, you could now have a steam powered engine and a few workers and get a lot of stuff done. Or once the tractor comes online, right, the tractor can do the work of several teams of horses, and then there's sort of a transportation revolution that's built on top of the Industrial Revolution, that you see trucks come online, and the fact that you can now get I ate a pineapple today. There's not a pineapple tree within 3,000 miles of me.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, transportation. But each time that revolution happens, the world gets wealthier. Just as a whole, all of a sudden the world is wealthier, and it means the wealthy people have more because there's more wealth to differentiate themselves from the poorest people. But it doesn't mean the poor people are worse off than before the revolution. And so, the Industrial Revolution, the Transportation Revolution, Communications Revolution, and that's really about to happen again.
Yeah.
There's another technology revolution. One of the really interesting things that's going to happen is I do believe that we're on the cusp of a significant medical revolution. Well, two things. There's a medical revolution, and I think there's an education revolution coming along as well. There is, as our world gets more complicated, the benefits of a strong education are overwhelming. And you look at, and part of it is, bias and bullshit and all that stuff, but all the Supreme Court justices went to two different law schools, Harvard and Yale, and that's it. And it's not that they're just trying to pick those people. The education there is so good, and the quality of students that go there is so high that they produce a lot of just top-notch legal scholars. You look at the startups and the billionaires who are out there now. A lot of them dropped out of college, but they started off with excellent educations, 1 year of college, 2 years of college. Michael Dell or Bill Gates or Larry Ellison. You look at Sergey Brin and I can't remember the other guy in Google right now. Page.
Yeah.
Page. They went to Stanford. There is something to be said for this more complicated world having that an excellent education can take you farther. And there's no disputing the fact that that is a factor of money. I'm a little biased. I'm a person who, I had the benefit that my parents sent me to a boarding school. I was groomed for academic success. My dad is a scientist. My mom was a librarian. But, going to a boarding school from grades 10 to 12 prepared me so much better for academic rigor and study and learning things. When I got to the University of Texas, it's University of Texas, but I was just astonished at, how poorly some people were prepared for high level learning. The failure of the education system, all that stuff. Yeah. But it's also a property of money. Okay. If you can pay for it, you can get your kids an amazing education. I don't know what we're going to do about that, because that's always going to be available for money. Because if I'm an amazing educator, why wouldn't I want to sell my services privately?
Yeah. So, but you can do it if you're an amazing educator. So let's say I'm the best educator when it comes to civics, best in the world.
Yeah.
Would I strap myself to a private school in California or Massachusetts or wherever, or would I attempt to monetize it on this, where right, instead of getting a classroom of 20 people and parents paying for them to be in that classroom, I can charge less, but now I've got access to millions of people.
You raise a great point. You should get Arvind Vora on your show. I think he'd be happy to do it.
Yeah.
That's a great point. The internet is the great equalizer in that respect, and you're 100% right. I do think that for there's a thing where there's different styles of learning and learners. Mm-hmm. Some people learn by seeing, some people learn by reading, some people learn by hearing. Yep. I found out early on, if I can have a conversation with somebody about something, I'll know everything there is to know about it. I can remember the things that people have said, but more than that, I remember the thought processes that led me to various conclusions and stuff like that. Yeah. And once I figured that out, it was awesome. I could learn anything I wanted to. But there is there's an interesting question. I'm still here.
No, we got a joiner, the SAS Master General.
Yes, Tyler.
What's up? How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. Tell me what SMG stands for. Unless in which case I know.
He's the SAS Master General of the Libertarian Party.
Got it.
It's a nickname. It's a nickname that was bestowed upon me during the 2020 election season, and it's kind of stuck.
Yep. Yeah, Judith raises a good point. Khan Academy, that sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff that's out there. I do occasionally think that, in the high end of STEM stuff, people aren't familiar with the woman who essentially brought RNA to mainstream. Her name is Kariko. I'm not even going to remember her last name right now. It starts with a K. But she's this Hungarian doctor. But because, she wants to make something of her life, she doesn't stay in Hungary. She comes to the United States. And then she goes through all this bullshit where people are trying to suppress mRNA because, mRNA is an equalizer. It's not, I had this conversation last night. I'm in a conversation group with a lot of medical science professionals, and we were sort of talking about where we were. And I expressed that I wanted to get Moderna, but I couldn't get it. I only got Pfizer. And one of the people asked me, this woman is the head of research for Novartis, which is another giant pharmaceutical company.
Oh yeah.
Like, Dan, why did you want to get Moderna? And I'm like, well, I mean, part of it is because, they're Boston based. Shout out to my Boston homies. But also, their whole name, Moderna, is, they want to start with M and end with RNA. They're pioneering this technology that's going to save our lives. And I mean, mRNA, because like you can take a virus now and they just run it through their machine and it produces the message that will make the antibody that will kill that virus. Right. So it's an amazing technology because it doesn't put anything into your body. What it does is it tells your body to make antibodies to kill this shit, anything that looks like this, which is just amazing. It's so inobtrusive. You don't really have to worry about, obviously there's going to be some side effects from anytime somebody sticks a piece of metal into your arm. But in terms of medicine, like what it is for medicine, it's not really much of a medicine. All it is something that tells your body, hey, get ready to fight this. Yeah. So I really wanted, and I said, I want to get Moderna. She's like, well, Moderna, the thing about it is that people burn out there. They make them work 12-hour days. They used to only have like 300 employees, and nobody lasted more than 2 years there. And the boss is a huge dick. I'm like, I didn't know any of that stuff, but I'd much rather do that than Pfizer, who's this giant pharmaceutical company, so invested in the system that prevents us from having real healthcare. What I like is called free healthcare, where you're free to choose whatever healthcare you want to pursue. Nobody has to provide it for you. But I like to see the small companies coming up, and I think mRNA is really going to change a lot of shit. I predict, and I have nothing to base this on, but complete cure for both herpes and HIV in our lifetime based on mRNA treatments and other stuff. And so, but then the question becomes, this is another sort of differentiator. Who's going to get those treatments? Right? How do you pay for them? It's got to, for me, I support a private healthcare system. So it's going to be the wealthy people who get them first.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it always is.
Yep. So then we're going to be in the situation where the wealthy people are going to have this huge advantage in education, but they're also going to have this huge advantage in healthcare. So, right? We're on the cusp of, much, much longer lives, I believe, for the people with the greatest healthcare. And that's going to be the wealthiest people. And so there are times to myself that I think maybe the system is a little biased.
Well,
the alternative is much worse.
Well, but does that spark resentment and then, revolution based off of, an elite getting access to all the best education, all the best medicines, and then
there's I think we talked about this before. There's this amazing science fiction series called The Long Arm of Gil Hammer, written by Larry Niven. It's in the Tales of Known Space. And there's a point in Earth's history where they perfect transplants. So essentially, they can take a kidney from anybody and give it to you, and you'll be good to go. Lungs, heart, anything, and it's flawless. And so life expectancy starts to soar, but it's very expensive, and there's a shortage of body parts. So almost every criminal offense now carries a death penalty. So I don't know, a little dystopia.
Trade-off. It's a trade-off, yeah.
Exactly.
There's always been rumors that the Chinese do that they kill off prisoners for body parts, for transplants, and for party officials and things like that. But which is part of the issue with that bodies exhibit that they do. They send around the United States is these guys were prisoners. And
I listened to there's a podcast that I listened to that very interesting set premise. It's a progressive Democrat who's black conservative Republican who's Catholic, Irish, white, but they grew up together. They went to Catholic school together, and so they have this show. And they just completely disagree with each other politically, but they will go on and on. But the one thing that they sort of are agreement upon was, sort of get vaccinated. And the black guy talked about the fact, he's like, I'm really concerned. My community, there's all this stuff about it. So their show 2 days ago, he had on a physician from Charles Drew Medical School, which is one of the 4 historically black medical schools in the United States. And he just said, ask a black doctor about the vaccine. And honestly, it was great because there was a lot of information about it that I didn't know. And I'm trying to remember what led me down this thread. I don't know.
So, Tyler,
Sir.
where are you heading to coming up? Which conventions?
I believe Missouri is the next one I will be attending. I'm going to be there speaking on behalf of Outright. Then after that, I believe, is Colorado and then Nevada. So,
Nice.
I'm going to be going around and working with Outright, the Radical Caucus, and networking for my upcoming run. So,
Very good.
but yeah.
What are you running for, Tyler?
I'm sorry?
What are you running for?
LNC secretary.
Outstanding.
Yes, sir.
So I'm getting my second shot this week. I'll be fully vaccinated. Of course, our convention is Saturday, giving up my state chairship. And but I can't wait because that'll, I'll feel a lot better about going to these conventions. I'm going to be in Pennsylvania in May. I'm going to be at the LNC meeting in Chicago in June. The next week I'll be in North Carolina for their convention. So it'll be that's why I'm so excited about getting out there and getting the vaccines done. So
what did you get?
I got Pfizer, and it kicked my ass. Oh my God!
Really?
First shot. So the first shot, by the end of the first day, my arm was hurting pretty significantly, like a tetanus shot. Hurting. Now my wife was worse. She got the Moderna. Her arm hurt worse. Her worse. But the next day, I felt it wasn't like I had like flu symptoms or anything. I mean, I didn't have the flu. I didn't have a temperature or anything like that. But I felt like I got hit by a truck. Just walking down to my office to log in for work was like this monumental feat. And it was really weird because I would get off work. It would be sunny outside, and I'd be like, I've got to go to bed. So I'd sleep for like 3 hours. It would always be like a 3-hour stretch. I'd wake up. It was the devil's nap. You go to bed and it's light outside, and you wake up and it's dark outside. And and then I'd be up the whole night until about 4 o'clock. Then I drift off, and then I have to get up at 6 o'clock to go to work. And so it was like this cycle for 2 days that I was just. But I experienced the exact same thing 2 months or about a month and a half prior. The exact same symptoms. So I wonder if I had actually gotten COVID at some point before
maybe
all this.
It'll be interesting to see if when you get your second shot, if you have no reaction.
Yeah.
I am getting my second Pfizer shot a week from tomorrow. And it's interesting. I had no reaction to the first shot at all.
Really?
Yeah.
But, and they say that if you have a reaction to the first one, you tend to get a reaction to the second one. So you may be in luck. I'm probably fucked.
We'll see. I'm excited to get it done. It's weird. My wife got the Johnson & Johnson yesterday.
Oh, okay.
But what's funny is I was in a higher group than her, and so I was able to get my first dose. But because she got Johnson & Johnson, she's actually vaccinated before me, even though she's in the, as she likes to describe it, her classification was so low, excuse me, that she was after mimes and jugglers. All the mimes and jugglers have been vaccinated. Then it was her turn.
Well, I think that's how it's going to go. Is that the higher classification, like the people that are most vulnerable, will get that 2-shot because that is, I think, most protection.
Right.
And then the lower classification will get Johnson and Johnson just as
Right.
Although, get them in and out the door.
Yeah, in this case, where we are in Southern Maryland, it's done at Blue Crab Stadium, the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs and their fan base Crustacean Nation. And so they ran out of the Pfizer there, so that's why she got Johnson and Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't want to go up to Raven Stadium in Baltimore to do that.
So I have to go. I got mine in Martinsburg, which is like 10 miles from.
Yep.
Very, very simple. Now the second shot got moved, and I got to go out to the casino in Charlestown, which makes the commute like an hour. So
on the other hand, maybe you make some money while you're there.
I was hoping the buffet is open. If the buffet is open, I'll be happy.
Can't lose at the buffet. I've said that a million times.
Then I go play craps.
Right. So I own a craps table.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have a mathematician's weakness for gambling. I own a craps table, and I own a blackjack spread with a 6-deck shoe. Nice. I like the Corona sign.
So, Tyler, you've gotten your shots, haven't you?
I am in the process of weighing options. Like I've said before on here, my medical decisions are mine. I do have certain outliers that many libertarians, anarchists, the liberty-oriented people probably haven't considered as far as being the detractors of getting it. So that I have a lot to consider. I have heard that if you do go get it, Moderna is one that you want. I don't know. I've been enjoying the memes of the rival. Which vaccine did you get? But no, the experiences that I've witnessed of people going to get them, a lot of vertigo, fatigue. So that's another thing, especially with recent health issues I've had develop, whether or not I'm in a position to pursue those, especially with such neurological effects. So,
yeah, I mean, if you do get them, I would probably do it when you can have a couple of days off afterwards, because it does cycle through. I mean, it does come out in a couple of days, but yeah, if you have other concerns and stuff, I would definitely get those addressed and make sure you're comfortable with it, because yeah, you want to protect yourself, but you also want to you want to protect yourself too. So.
Right, and that's I don't want to give way to I understand that there's a lot of side effects that people have been raising concerns about and everything. It's not that I'm feeding in or giving in to any type of hyperbolic reactionism or anything as far as the vaccines are concerned. Like I said, it's at the end of the day, people are going to get it or they're not. There's no real other than you want to fight about it at this point. That's just my personal opinion though too, but we'll see, because I do, like I said, I do have outliers that most in our circles don't consider regarding my family and everything. So
yeah, exactly.
I've just taken up the same. I've taken up the same argument that I wholeheartedly believe medical decisions are private. So even if I do get it, if it's really anybody's business. So,
fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly, if somebody makes the choice not to do it, that's cool with me. That's their choice, and I'm not going to ever enforce what I do on someone else.
Right.
You know, I made the choice for myself, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, I'm traveling. I'll start traveling very frequently here in the next couple months. So I just want to make sure that I do what I can to protect folks because we just got word here in Martinsburg that they've got the South African variant around here. So
Oh Lord.
There is a
Yeah, that's the one that hit the UK, isn't it? Like what is it? U117, something like that.
and that's the one that's hitting Vancouver right now. They got the Canucks.
right. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I trust everybody else to do the right thing. I don't need any laws or mandates or anything like that telling people to get vaccinated or wear masks or anything like that. I personally wear a mask when I go out because I don't know whether or not I'm asymptomatic. Essentially, I'm starting to treat my mouth like the single powerful firearm that it is. And whenever I handle a weapon, I always treat it as if it's loaded. I don't put my finger on the trigger unless I'm going to shoot somebody. I always know, what my target is and what's behind it. All those things that I do, and I do it because there's the potential there to hurt somebody else.
Sure.
And so I treat, I just do it the same way. I don't want to hurt anybody else if I might be infectious. On the other hand, if people want to voluntarily, we go into a room together and we all want to unmask together. Fuck yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
I told my friend, I have a friend who's a nurse practitioner and she's actually quitting her job. And as you can imagine, we're going to have a massive round of post-traumatic stress from our healthcare professionals relatively soon. And so we talked about that. She's like, and just at the end of the conversation, she's like, and I'm heading out to Colorado, certainly in August. Might go out for the convention. And I said, well, I'll see you then. She's like, oh my God, please tell me that it's going to be okay for me to hug you. I'm like, it's totally okay for you to hug me, but you're probably going to squeeze some tears out of me in the process because I'm going to see you. And that's what I want. Just people voluntarily agree to do whatever the hell they want, but be respectful to everybody else.
Yeah. It doesn't cost you anything.
Exactly. Doesn't cost you a thing.
Doesn't cost you a thing to be a good person.
Yeah, and then that was the thing with that. There was that Florida store that everybody got all bent out of shape about because people were unmasked in there. But there were like 500 people in there, right? They all clearly chose to be in there like that.
Yeah.
Nobody walked in and all of a sudden everybody took the mask off. Surprise!
Yeah.
But you knew what you're walking into in the first place. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else is going on? So I talked with Nick Sarwark tonight about criminal justice reform. Have you guys been following the Chauvin trial?
A little bit.
All right. So I'm thinking this is going okay at this point. Now I know it's incredibly hard to get a conviction on a police officer. The odds are definitely stacked against them, but I think, of course, with all the evidence, especially the video itself, they should be able to get a conviction. Whether they can beat the murder charges is, I think, the question here. I don't know. I'm hoping that this trial wraps up relatively quickly. Do you think they're going to bring him on the stand, though?
I do. I think that's the only chance. Now, I mean, I'm not the attorney that Nick is, and so if he said they're not going to, then
Well, I didn't ask him that. I should have, but he thinks it's going okay. But again, it's the whole.
Right. I mean, part of the interesting question about it is, what do we mean by it's going okay? Do we want us to have a, do we want it to be? We want the conviction.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I want, and it's weird to say that I want somebody, convicted, but I do.
It's murder. So
yeah, exactly. He murdered somebody. That's the thing about it. I wish it wasn't. I just wish dead. Wish nobody was dead.
Yeah.
But not only did he murder somebody, but he did it on film, and he had 3 accomplices. I remember.
It was the cavalier nature of him, like just sitting there with his hand in his pocket, like what?
Yeah, exactly. It was insane. And there's this. This is other interesting thing about it. You're a sports fan. You might remember when they had Rush Limbaugh co-hosting ESPN. Sports, not Sports Center.
Monday Night Football.
Whatever it was the football after show. And at one point in time, he made a statement about, I think Donovan McNabb is overrated. And I'm like, well, why do you think that? He said, well, I think that there's some people in the media who are, have been desirous for there to be a black quarterback who did well. And so he hasn't been getting the harsh coverage that he should. Nobody said anything at the time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, afterwards, there's a whole blow up. Tommy Jackson's like, I did the time. I was just focused on being a show and being professional rather than thinking about what was going on. And the guy who actually won it all was Donovan McNabb. He's like, I found out that, there's like 6 black people in the room. One of them was working on the camera. What does it say about where we are in terms of saying our conversations? And nobody said, what the fuck?
Exactly.
And I thought that was a really good point. This where we are, and that's the thing about it, is that everybody. I mean, there are people in the audience who are saying, you're killing them, but there's got to be a point at which people are willing to act and intervene. And in fact, in Buffalo, Dave, you probably know this. There's a very famous case about this with a woman who was a police officer.
Yes.
And you're from Buffalo. You tell that story.
I'm not from Buffalo, but I know the story that she was a cop. One of her officers with her was beating the shit out of some guy. I mean, just beating the fool out of him. And he was compliant. He was not doing anything, and she pulled the officer off of him, and she faced all kinds of retribution for it. She ended up having to leave the force because she intervened on behalf of a person over an officer. She violated the blue line.
Right.
And see, and then one of the things that Nick and I talked about tonight was, that, and hey, kudos to New Mexico, my home state, for ending qualified immunity, not only for police, but for public officials. That is beautiful. I love it. But ending qualified immunity, making cops be bonded and insured to practice law, to be on that side of practicing law.
Right.
And then, then it flips the responsibility and onto the police department on weeding out the bad actors, because bad actors will raise everyone's insurance rates. It'll bring more accountability. And rather than, we need to protect everybody, it's accountability for the bad actors, keeping them from raising everyone's insurance rates, getting them out of the force, or retraining them, or whatever needs to be done. Kind of flipping that narrative rather than hoping that a jury will convict somebody for doing something wrong. Because if Derek Chauvin had been responsible for his civil liabilities that he had built up over the years, and he had to pay insurance based off of those, he would not have been an officer.
Right. Nobody would have hired him because the risk would have been his insurance premiums would have been too high.
Yeah, it would have been prohibitively expensive for him to actually get insurance, and then and no force would want to bring him on to raise all of their insurances.
Yeah, it's not a bad solution. I definitely support the idea of practitioners insurance. In general, I think it's a great way for the free market to regulate things. It gets a little weird when you say you're going to require insurance, but let's say that for government officials, it makes sense that the city should be required that sort of level of insurance. when you do that, the people are able to not just because one of the things that happened in Massachusetts, where definitely had a terrible problem with over policing. The A police officer would be fired from one city, and he would just go and get hired in another city, one town over, because he wouldn't actually get fired. They'd he'd quit, or they'd allow him to go, or whatever. And when you have the insurance policy, that follows the officer around from place to place. And so if a person does something bad once, they're not going to be, maybe they could get another job, but it'll cost more. And if they do it again, then they're done.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the issues is that they call it passing the trash. That guy gets fired in a big city location as a police officer, and then they just move on to a small town. One, because they don't have a database that really tracks those types of violations. So
and the small town is thrilled to have a
big city cop. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Tell us about the drug dealer you busted.
Yeah, we had that in a college town I lived in New Mexico. That former Albuquerque cop who had been fired for use of force violations was hired in our town, and then came and busted a party that I was at, and violently took down a friend of mine that was he was actually a private investigator. Took him down pretty violently, and my friend sued the city and won because it was a use of force violation. There was no reason to take him down like he did. So, but yeah, it's I think that's the reform that will kind of flip the police into policing their own and making sure that getting those bad apples. Because that's the thing, they're like, oh, it's just a few bad apples, and it's like, well, do you know the whole line? Can you say the whole line that goes with it's just a few bad apples? What do a few bad apples do?
Exactly, but a few bad apples ruins the bunch.
Exactly. And it's like they just don't they don't get past the just a few bad apples. So,
I've actually been that's what I think I found so interesting about the Chauvin trial is like all these former supervisors of his are coming forward now, and all these former coworkers are actually like launching out against him.
Yeah, that is amazing that he has had quite a few police officers speak out against his his tactics and actually testify against him. That's very rare when it comes to a trial like this.
Yeah, like I think it was an inspector that used to work in the department, actually like helped design the training. The person that's the longest serving officer on the Minneapolis police force, everything like that, like they're all coming out and like that is not how we train, and that was completely uncalled for. I think was what the term was used, the term that was used. And like I'm sitting there, I'm not gonna lie, like I did that whole like about time they start doing this shit, like because it is frustrating, and like we all witness. But that's been, I think, the biggest shock to me is that they're actually starting to take up policing their own. Now this could all just be because they're trying to save face. No, but it's a step towards the right direction, and maybe it'll be something that actually does start to take prevalence amongst the police.
Reward good behavior. Yeah, you want to reward good behavior. So this is good behavior that you're doing this. And they're also human. They know that if this guy gets off, the entire city is going to burn. I mean, they're I mean, not only that city, but a lot of cities are going to burn just because people are tired of this. Like this guy kneeled on somebody's neck for 9 minutes and doesn't get convicted of murder. I mean, I don't think this is going to end well if there isn't a conviction on the murder charge.
Have you watched Chappelle's thing, the 846 Project?
Oh yeah,
I mean that was astonishing.
Yeah, it was.
It was really good, and I thought the thing that the LP put out about it was a really good tweet. I don't care if he had what he had in his system. I don't care if he was happy. I don't care if he was sad. I don't care if he was angry. All I care about is that police officer's knee should not have been on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah. I don't care. I don't care if he passed a counterfeit $100 or $1,000 bill. There's no death penalty for that charge. And I've never heard. Was it an actual counterfeit bill that he passed?
I don't know.
I actually have no idea. That's the big thing. I don't.
Yeah, I mean the whole crux of this thing was based off of the store reporting him for passing a counterfeit 20, and was it an actual counterfeit 20? I mean, like, would it? Everything about this is just shit. Like, it's just awful. But how much worse would it be if that $20 bill was actually a valid $20 bill, and this guy was killed for absolutely nothing?
Oh, I mean, I don't believe that they stopped him for the 20 counterfeit bill at all. I just truly don't believe that. I think that that's just crap.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I wonder, because that was the source of the call, I guess.
It seems nobody knows. There's several articles on it, but
Yeah,
it seems like nobody that actually knows yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, was it the source of the call, or did they just make up some bullshit?
yeah, it could be. It could be to try and justify. Still, nothing justifies murdering somebody over a counterfeit 20.
Exactly.
There's as much as I hate jail, there's jail for a reason. So,
Yep.
and yeah, that passing a counterfeit 20 is fraud, and theft based off of fraud, but still not a capital offense. Although nothing should be a capital offense in my mind, but
Right.
it's awful.
Yeah, it seems the general consensus, though, during all the uncertainty of whether or not it was a counterfeit, the general consensus, a lot of people across a lot of platforms, that's still not a death penalty. Like,
Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about this week?
I do.
Yeah.
Let me adjust my background, see if I managed to do this right while I was doing this.
I can see part of it.
Hang on.
Oh, hey, are you, Dan? Are you gonna go to
How about that?
podcast? Nice.
I like that.
Probably at 420. I love it.
Yeah, 420, and we have got some amazing guests on. One guy who is in the cannabis insurance business. So they insure pretty much every aspect of the cannabis business. So they do agricultural insurance for the growers. They do transportation research. As you may or may not have heard, there's been a little bit of road piracy going after trucks. Insurance for directors and operators, or directors and officers insurance, all those sort of things. But it's interesting to see them crafting insurance, which of course we think of as this amazing solution for the cannabis industry. So that's great. We've got a grower on. We have and because we're people for liberty, so all sorts of people. We've actually got a progressive Democrat on, a Bernie brother, who's trying to open a recreational marijuana store in Malden, Massachusetts, and he is now fed up with regulations. So it's going to be a fun conversations talking with him about stuff like that.
So a good idea for that podcast is how the laws have been written to keep the people that know the most about the industry out of the industry.
Oh, absolutely.
People that have faced the irrational consequences of the drug war are kept out of the industry because of the laws that were written about it. But on a side note, how excited are you to go across the river to Virginia on my birthday, July 1st?
What are we doing on July 1st? But if it's just coming to your birthday, I'm coming.
No, but July 1st is the day that recreational weed becomes legal in Virginia.
Oh, but there won't be any stores open.
Damn it.
Because
it takes a while to build.
Massachusetts took about 2 years because like Jersey legalized it, and I mean look, dude, I'm 3 hours away from Philadelphia. I'm gonna get a cheesesteak once a month, and I have to drive through New Jersey to get there. So if I could do that and pick up cannabis on the way, and Jersey legalized last November, but they're still at least 18 months away from opening up a store.
Oh,
but no, I'm totally psyched because right now everything that I do, as I showed everybody the other night, I have to get from Massachusetts.
oh wow.
It's an interesting thing. I live in a national park, so I am breaking the law right now.
Sweet.
Yep. That's all I got, man.
All right. Tyler, you got anything?
No, not tonight. I think I should have been here a little bit earlier, but we had some other stuff with caucus work. But
okay.
yeah, always a pleasure. Dan, it was really good to see you.
It's nice to meet you, Tyler. I apologize that I didn't know that you were the person who stood up to run. I know that there was another person running for secretary. It's nice to finally meet you.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the 420 podcast, though.
Yes.
I'm excited about that. That's an awesome banner.
Well, so here's the funny thing about it is I said to myself, you can't say starting promptly at 420. That's sort of a contradiction in what we want to be talking about with the whole thing. But yeah, we'll do the best we can to start at 420.
I do have a question for you, Dan.
Yes.
I'm still broadcasting to People for Liberty on Sunday night.
Yes.
Am I good to go for doing that still? Or
well, I tell you what. Yes, you are. Let us send you over a little piece of paperwork now as we're getting more formalized.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sued for something you say on the air. And so
that's good. That's good.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, everyone, thank you for joining us this week. We had a good crowd number. So, and thank you to Judith Reuter and Elizabeth and Dan also commented. Thank you to everyone watching. Elizabeth's on Facebook. Judith's on YouTube. We're also on Twitch and Twitter. And we really appreciate you tuning in. Let me give you my banners of where. Well, actually, my closing does get all that stuff. So, but the only new thing is we've got an Instagram going on right now. It's the Political Deep Dive on Instagram. So give it a follow if you want to. But we'll see everyone next week. I will be talking with Steve Sheets about politics in Pennsylvania. So Steve is running for U.S. Senate and is the outgoing chair of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. So
Steve Sheets, super entertaining. People should
yeah
in for that.
I hope he's not wearing sleeves. Gun show.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye, guys.